I gotta talk about this story. This is gonna be a big story here in the movie world, especially in the genre film movie world, and that is the possible rebuilding, reconstruction of the DCEU, which had been falling completely apart, a few years ago, and has slowly kind of started to climb its way back up out of the hole it was in, sort of like symbolically, like in The Dark Knight Rises when, Bruce Wayne had to do the same thing. What I'm talking about specifically is the story that, and Deadline reported on this, and then John Campea and Robert Meyer Burnett kind of told their version of the story, and that is that there's supposedly an upcoming JJ Abrams Superman movie. And again, this has not been officially announced yet because, well, I have a theory as to why it hasn't been announced yet. But supposedly, JJ Abrams' Bad Robot production company, and again, we don't know if he's going to be directing the film, writing it, producing it. We don't know all the details yet. In fact, there's already a script out there, so maybe he's not writing it. But the story is that Henry Cavill, what Deadline reported is that Henry Cavill is supposed to be coming back to play Superman in cameo appearances for upcoming DC movies that have not been announced yet. Now, when you hear something like that, if you know anything about the movie business, you know that's BS. And what I mean by BS is not the fact that Henry Cavill is not coming back to do cameo appearances, but when you have an actor who has been married to a part for this long, who is known, he is now known as being the modern version of, Clark Kent Superman. It's very hard to believe they're not going to at least try to negotiate him to lead to lead a movie, to have his own movie, to have a standalone film like a Man of Steel sequel. Obviously, Batman v Superman was a Man of Steel sequel, but I mean a sequel to that, And hearing Campy and Robert Meyer Burnett talk about it sort of confirmed it, because they feel the same way I do. Like, why would he negotiate for a bunch of cameos, supposedly at like a less rate? And no, Henry Cavill's become a pretty big star. Since Man of Steel started, he's kind of become a big star, and because of that, he's not going to be doing a bunch of cameo appearances. I mean, he will, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying he's not going to do them, but he has to be negotiating himself to be the lead in a movie, in a Superman movie. Now, Henry Cavill, even though I personally don't find Man of Steel, Batman v Superman, or Justice League to be this amazing Superman movie, I just don't. Like, I think that outside of the original Superman 1 and Superman 2 with the Richard Donner cut, if not, I mean, either movie's fine, but the Richard Donner movies, the ones with Christopher Reeve in them, every other Superman film that has been live action has been kind of hit or miss. Now, I think Man of Steel is, I have issues with the movie, but it's the closest they came, right? It's the closest that they've come to really capturing Superman, albeit dark Zack Snyder version, but I think it's the best one they've put out, since the Reeve films. Even though I actually really like Superman Returns, I actually like that movie, and I know I'm in the minority, but I did enjoy that film quite a bit. But that's besides the point. I'm digressing for a moment. The rumor is that JJ Abrams, his production company, Bad Robot, is going to be married to DC and working on some movies, and one of them is this Superman movie with Henry Cavill possibly being Superman, and kind of them going forward beyond, Justice League, and kind of going forward and continuing the DCEU. So what's going to be an interesting story many years down the road is if they can actually pull this off, and if they can sort of rebuild equity with their own fans and with the movie going public and produce quality films back to back to back to back to back. We've already seen Aquaman, Wonder Woman, Shazam. They were all fun movies for different reasons. We have the Snyder Cut coming out, and who knows how that's going to be. And I think the Snyder Cut is a key factor in where this is going to go. Let me tell you what I mean by that in a minute. So the other rumor is that Ben Affleck, who is not supposed to be playing, Batman anymore, supposedly, that they are now renegotiating with him to come back and portray that version of Batman in future DC films. So why is this all happening around the same time? We have the Snyder Cut announcement, we have the Superman Henry Cavill rumors, and now this new Ben Affleck rumors. And by the way, AT&T tweeted out pictures of Ben Affleck as Batman and then deleted the pictures, which is very interesting. And these things don't happen by accident. It sounds like somebody from AT&T, from Warner Brothers, may have accidentally kind of spilled the beans on what they were planning too soon, or they might be purposely teasing us. But I don't think they would do that without some kind of goal in mind. I think that what's going to happen for the future of the DCEU is going to entirely depend on how the Snyder Cut is received on HBO Max. I think that if the HBO Max Snyder Cut, which we still don't know too much about, but we know some stuff, I think if that ends up getting a lot of critical acclaim, I think if the fans like it, I think if the critics like it, if it gets praise, and if it does well for HBO Max, if it gives them new subscribers, I think that is going to sort of create a course correction for the DCEU. I think that what they are going to do, because the success of the Snyder Cut is going to really determine where this is going to go. I think what they're going to do is, if the Snyder Cut is well received, they are going to decanonize the original theatrical cut, which, by the way, this is not the first time they've done something like this. Look up the Richard Donner cut. It's very similar. But they're going to sort of decanonize the original theatrical cut, the Joss Whedon cut, if you want to call it that. And the Snyder Cut will be the official telling of that story, of the Justice League story. And then what I think they're going to do is move forward with the original plan, which is bringing back Affleck, bringing back Cavill, and doing that Justice League sequel, possibly with Darkseid as the lead villain. That's my prediction. I'm calling it right now in the early summer of 2020. If I'm right, and again, I'm not giving any inside information. I don't have any sources at DC, I swear I don't. It's just my speculation that makes the most logical sense. If the Snyder Cut does well, they're going to go back and course correct and kind of do what they were originally planning to do, which is make Justice League a 2-part story, and then from there maybe continue on and tell more Superman and more Batman stories. Whether JJ Abrams is going to be doing this or not for all these, we don't know. But I could see them doing something like this. Maybe not so many Batman movies, but having Ben Affleck's Batman appear in other films could also be a thing. Kind of like what we're hearing about the Cavill rumors. But I think they can course correct and then do Justice League Part 2. And then eventually after that, either come back and do more Justice League movies. But before they do that, maybe do a couple Superman movies in between. I mean, I would love to see Mr. and Mrs. Spickley. I would love to see, and I hope I said the name right. That's how I learned it from the cartoon. I would love to see Brainiac as a possible villain. I feel like Brainiac as a villain is sort of tailor-made for a JJ Abrams movie. And unfortunately, because of JJ Abrams, what he wound up doing with Star Wars and Star Trek, which is making one decent movie and then one bad movie, you know, he's kind of 50%. He's batting at 50% here. I can see a lot of people not being excited for a JJ Abrams Superman movie with or without Brainiac, but I feel like, you know, if he acts as a producer and doesn't really get involved behind the camera, I still think he's a great director as far as creating these amazing shots. I think he's still great at creating individual scenes. But maybe those rumors of him being handcuffed by Disney, if they're true, maybe here he'll get to kind of really show his chops. You know, I'm always for giving people second chances. You know, and Abrams is kind of, you know, hit or miss, I feel. But maybe he won't direct at all. So we can't look at this in a negative way right away. We have to kind of see where they're going to go with it, see what happens, and then go from there. I am curious, though, about what Zack Snyder's role is going to be now. Because if the Snyder Cut essentially ends up being a, not literal, but a sort of, I don't want to use the word reboot, because it's not a reboot. in the classic definition. But if the Snyder Cut ends up being like a reincarnation of the DCEU's plans, is he going to be involved going forward? Is he going to be brought back in despite them having problems with him? Is he going to be a guy who will just be a creative force behind the scenes? Also maybe a producer and not really a director? I don't know. I mean, David Ayer, who knows? But I think that they are trying to course correct things now. And I think that if the Snyder Cut is successful, we are going to see Cavill and Affleck back. And we will see a Justice League sequel. I'm telling you that right now. And it'll be... And you know what? I think the Justice League sequel probably will be directed by Zack Snyder. At least that one. At least that one. Not saying they all will be going forward, but I think that one, they'll give it to Snyder. We'll see what happens. I don't know. But let me know what you think. Do you think my theory has any plausibility? This is all rumor and conjecture right now, but it's heavily being rumored. And John Campea does have good sources at DC, like him or not. He definitely does. Robert Meyer Burnett has been involved in several stories behind the scenes when it comes to films. I trust him as well. And Deadline putting out this article so soon after the announcement of the Snyder Cut. I don't know, man. It ain't no coincidence. It's not. These things don't happen on accident. Anyways, let me know what you think. Love you guys. We'll talk soon.